Thanks for joining me for another episode of Scot Pop, the show that celebrates the past, present and future of Scottish music, and it's a latter concept I'm looking to focus on today. One of the reasons I started this podcast was because of the vibrancy in Scottish music. If you look at the bands, you probably notice yourselves, all these bands that are reforming, the Beta Band, Big Country, the Bluebells, Friends Again, etc. It's great to have them back. You know, I think it's fantastic to see these bands reforming. I actually went to see the Skids last year at Chalk in Brighton, and I went to see a revamped Franz Ferdinand in Glastonbury, and they were great shows. The atmosphere is electric, you know, fantastic. And the one thing I learned that night, apart from the fact that Richard Jobson still can't dance, is that this nostalgia still sells big time. Nostalgia is big business in the music industry. Now that's nothing new, of course. That's not exactly an original concept. Having worked in music magazines for the past 15 years, another thing I've learned is that the music industry likes safe bets. Now, as the music industry evolves, basically today is the live music industry. Albums, nobody sells records anymore. There's very few. They're basically used as a marketing tool for the live shows. You know, you put out an album, you do a tour. That's basically what the albums are there for. But of course, if all the focus and the attention is on nostalgic acts, where does that leave new acts? You know, where does that leave new bands? Where are the venues for them to play? Where are the promoters that are going to take a chance on them? In the part 2 interview with Sir Ian Rankin, I put that question to him: is there a crisis in Scottish music?
I don't think there's a crisis in the Scottish music industry, but I do think there are lots of compelling reasons why this is happening. Number one, the nostalgia aspect. A lot of us wish we were still the age we were when we first saw these bands, and we would like to see them again. In some cases, bands like the Skids, although Richard Jobson might be the only original member, are as good as they ever were on stage. You know, he's pumped up. The guy's up for a gig. He loves it. And the albums they're making aren't bad either. Bands like the Rezillos, Faye Fife keeps reinventing herself and bringing out new music. All of that is true. The bands themselves, the musicians, are maybe getting a pension. You know, they've gone through lean years. They've gone through years when they couldn't fill a venue, and now they're starting to fill venues again. Friends Again, I went to. I mean, they were around for 5 minutes. Originally, they were around for 5 minutes and probably did a few smallish shows. And now suddenly they're at the Fruit Market in Glasgow and it's completely sold out. And they're going, oh, hang on a minute. So next they're going to do the bandstand at Kelvin Grove. Then they're going to do the Barrowland. And they're having a ball. And the fans are having a ball watching them on stage again. And those of us who didn't see them first time round, I didn't see them first time round. I came to them via the Bathers. So I came to them much later on. So it's great to actually catch up with them and see them do the stuff live that you've only heard on record. I mean, I think it's tough for new artists. How do they get noticed? I mean, there are new tools available to them. They can go online and do it all themselves, and they can make music from their bedroom. They don't have to spend a fortune on studios anymore. They can do it all with a couple of laptop computers and some very basic electronics. That creativity hopefully is always going to be there. There's always going to be somebody who's going to take note of that and help them along the way, and hopefully they don't get ripped off or get dissuaded from continuing with their passion. There's plenty of people out there who are passionate about what they're doing and they've got the creativity and everything else, but the industry has to back them up. And you need the infrastructure there. You need, as I've said, you need the record shops, you need the venues, you need DJs, you need people on the radio playing their music. You need a music press. You need, whether it's online or not, you need people to be able to find out what's happening.
There's no doubt nostalgia is a powerful marketing tool. A lot of the bands that are back playing these days are playing venues that they would go nowhere near in their heyday. Here's James Grant talking about the power of nostalgia on the rejuvenated Friends Again.
People do want the nostalgia. They want one more night where they felt like they felt when they were young. I get that. And they want to hear songs that mean something to them. That songs bookmark people's lives. They're really important to people. If you can be a part of that for an audience, then that's special. I'm not really sure that it matters at the end of the day, like whether it's nostalgia or not. You still have to cut it. You still have to be able to cut it on stage. If you're not any good, then it won't matter. But if you rise to the occasion, Yeah, I don't think we're any different from. I think it is unusual in the respect that if you like, remember magazine seeing them at the O2, and there's like 2,500 punters in. I think the magazine were never that big. You know, it's only in retrospect it's like people. I think they only made two records. But I think I saw them at Glasgow Tech.
Right.
Playing to like 80 folk, whatever. It wasn't. So there is something slightly unusual about it. If you like, Friends Again were never big enough to sell out the fruit market or Barrowlands
Yeah.
or, the bandstand or whatever. We would never get anywhere near that.
As always in the music business, though, just when you think there's a bit of a flux, something always comes along. And in the past few years, I've spoken to agents, promoters, venues, management, etc. And there's four bands that keep coming up. I just thought this is probably just the perfect time to mention these four bands. The first is Brontes, who I wrote about in 2025 for a record collector feature on Glasgow and declared their debut single, First Hand Arrogance, chic-inspired indie pop. Their eponymous debut album is out now. Earlier this week, I spoke to the band's guitarist Erin to ask about the challenges facing emerging acts in Scotland today. There's a lot of bands that are reforming, kind of Friends Again, which is great as well. But what's it like for a new band just now in Scotland?
I think for a new band, it's kind of it's hard to describe. Like, you get a lot of offers from venues like King Tut's and all your kind of usual amazing venues that you've always wanted to play, and then you get to play them and then you play them again, and it's always just as rewarding getting to play any venue in Glasgow, I think. But the music scene in Glasgow, I think, is there's still room for improvement, I would say, but it's also one of those things that it's again just so rewarding to play in any place. And Glasgow crowds you can always rely on them to be
Right.
to show up, but also to be interactive with you as well.
But when you say improvement, Erin, what do you actually mean?
I think just in regards, I don't know how much I could say, but just in regards
Whatever you think.
um
Because the live music industry has always been an area where promoters they won't a lot of promoters like safe bets, and they're not going to take a chance on a new band. Is that what you're saying? Is that what you mean? Is it the promoters that are because promoters are notorious for they want to sell tickets, don't they? It's simple as that.
Yeah, exactly. I think it is partially to do with that. I think a lot to do with even just like fees in the music industry.
Yeah.
Like, it's always a lot of the time you end up having to pay to play, essentially, and it just should never be that way. But the budget is so tight sometimes that is just the way it is, and you want to balance it up of, do we take such a small fee and try and promote ourselves in that way? Everything is exposure. You don't want to say no to opportunities, but it's trying to balance that out.
You can hear the full interview with Erin in a few weeks. The second act is much talked about band The Chords, who have just come off a tour with perennial baggy favourites The Charlatans. Their C86 inspired pop is also worth a listen. Two other acts that come highly recommended, and not least because there's musical pedigree running through their indie bones, is Quad 90 and Radica. The daughter of Sushil K. Dade, formerly of the Soup Dragons and BMX Bandits, Radica has been working with former Teenage Fanclub bassist Jerry Love, as well as the Pastels, on her new album Cine Pop, which is due out this month. The final act creating that all-important buzz is Quad 90, an electro duo featuring the daughter of Creeping Bent record label boss Douglas MacIntyre. If you caught Quad 90's brand of disco electronica at Stereo recently in Glasgow, let me know what you thought. As Ian Rankin rightly noted, there's a balance though to be had between the past and the future. Now, as someone who lived by that mantra, probably the best person to give an overview of the Scottish music industry today is Douglas MacIntyre. Here's Douglas.
The industry part of it's always difficult, because if you look at the artists, I suppose, that are commercially successful, there's a lot of them, people like, Lewis Capaldi, etc. I think it's amazing that they're successful. I think it's brilliant what they're doing. So there's those kind of artists that have definitely become big mainstream artists, so that's good, because then that means there is money in the Scottish music industry to employ roadies, to employ studios. So you always need that, I think, to help generate finance. I think in the more kind of underground independent scene, it's always changing and moving, and I think there's a lot of great stuff. There's a lot of bands that have maybe been around for a wee while, like the Pastels, for example. And I saw the Pastels perform last year at this great festival called Glasgow's Pop, and they were absolutely brilliant. They were really amazing, really life-affirming experience. So,
and bands like Teenage Fan Club as well, another classic one.
The Fan Club are brilliant. Norman's doing great stuff as well in isolation with James Grant and Bernard Butler, and Jerry Love's doing. He's working on material, and it's great. So I think in all these different levels, and even when bands like the Bluebells and Friends Again, have come back, it feels quite a joyous thing. To me, it doesn't feel too much like, something tawdry about it. It feels really exciting, and I think pop music, for want of a better term, there was always this nonsense, hope I die before I get old, and rebellion of rock. It's a lot of rubbish, You wouldn't say that to Picasso or, to a playwright or to an author. I think your music, anybody any age can make music. I think that's a positive thing. And we went to see Katie and I went to see Edwyn Collins on his farewell tour last year, and it was absolutely brilliant, really amazing, and so I think from brand new bands right through to people like Edwyn, there's a lot of great great artists out there.
That's it for this episode of Scot Pop. Thanks for listening, and I'll be back shortly. Cheers.